Camera action.
Welcome to Fen Trapping with Newtonridge College. Today I'm just going to briefly run through how to set a Fen trap to best practice standards. So the Fenn Mk4 is an approved trap. It's part of a family of traps including the Springer Mk4 and the Solway Mk4, which are designed to catch small mustelids and rats and squirrels. Recently stoats have been taken off the approval for this trap, so it's no longer a stoat trap, so you've got to be very careful about which species are in the area when you set this trap. So before this trap goes in place, we have a look around the site to make sure we've got signs of the animals we want to catch, and we've got no signs of non-target species such as rabbits, stoats or otters. The other thing we want to make sure that we're away from, at least 50 metres away from, are people's houses, footpaths or anywhere that livestock could get in and disturb the trap and trap themselves. So once we've satisfied the conditions we need to meet for the site, the next thing we need to do is have a look at the trap. The trap itself needs to be an approved trap on the Spring Trap Approval Order. It's a Fenn Mk4 and it's stamped as such, and we need to make sure all the bits that it came supplied with from the manufacturer are there. So we've got a chain to anchor it, we've got the catch plate, we've got a safety catch, we've got a trigger plate and the jaws. We want this trap to work effectively to kill the animal that we're going to catch quickly. So setting the trap. First thing we need to make sure is that the chain is free and away from the jaws, and that we're going to move the safety catch and the trigger catch back so they don't get in the way when we set the trap. First of all, we're going to put our thumb in the thumb loop, and then we're going to put our fingers of the other hand underneath the spring and put the other thumb on top of the trap. Once we've got those fingers in position, we're going to pull the trap down, and with the hand that's nearest to the spring we're going to hold it shut, and then we're going to move our hands round and hold the trap open with both hands. At this point we're going to put the safety catch on so the trap can't go off and catch us. Once we've got it in that position, we're going to have to set the treadle plate so it catches to the catch plate. And the way we do this is we keep the trap upright, because if it's upright the safety catch can't be caught, can't come off accidentally. Push the jaw together, move the trigger plate up to the catch plate, and that's the trap set. What you want to avoid doing is when this trap is being set, we do not want to use our thumb to push the brass plate down to set to the trigger, because over time that bends the brass plate and it makes it so short that it doesn't reach the catch hook. So once we're ready to put the trap in its box, what we're going to do is get ourselves a cover. This can be made of a pile of stones, this can be made of a wooden box like this, it can be made of plastic or anything that covers the trap so that birds of prey and other non-target species can't land on the trap. What we're going to do next is take our trap, keeping our hands underneath it, and locate it where we want the trap to be set. We need to leave enough space between the surrounding stones and vegetation that the trap can go off, and that the box can fit between the trap and the stones. The other thing that I prefer to do is I don't like animals to run up onto the trap, so what I would normally do is I would dig out underneath the trap a small amount of soil or spoil and move that to one side. I'd make that deep enough that the trap sits level with the surrounding soil. And remember, when we put a trap in a box, the animal should run across the trigger plate and the jaws should close across its body. We never put Fenn traps in boxes so that they run over the trigger, because it doesn't catch the animal effectively and it doesn't kill them humanely. So once I've got my trap in place, what I would do next is, to avoid the animal seeing the trap, is I would take some very light vegetation, grass, brash, whatever, and I would just generally, lightly, not in a way that affects the way the trap works, cover the metal parts. One of the things I've done with this trap before I've set it is I've actually hung it outside for several months to weather, to take the smell of oil and machinery grease off the trap, to make it easier to hide in the box. So once I've got the trap camouflaged in there, I'm going to take my trap box, I'm going to put the trap box in place, and as it goes in place I'm going to look in the side of the trap box to make sure I've not put the box down on the trap, because if the box is on the trap, the box will stop it catching the animal. You'll notice that I've left the chain outside of the box, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my trapping pegs, I'm going to put that through the loop, and on the side that is away from the stones, so that I push the box back against the stone to hold it in place, I'm going to knock in as deep as I can a restrictor peg, so that any animal that gets caught in that stays here. So if I catch a non-target species that's larger than the trap should be catching, it will be here for me to deal with when I come back, and not running about the countryside with a Fenn trap attached to it. So we've got the trap covered, we've got the trap anchored. The next thing we need to do is really try and stop those non-target species getting in. And the main way we do that is to use these trapping pegs as what we call restrictor pegs. And at the entrances to the trap, what we're going to do is knock in restrictor pegs as far as we can to restrict the entrance of the trap down to about 5 centimeters or smaller. Any larger than that, and species that are illegal to catch in this trap, could get into that box and be caught. So we've done one side of the box, I've got some pegs left, and because this is what we call a run-through trap, I'll restrict the opposite end as well. So at this point we've got a cocked trap, we've got a restricted trap, we've got a covered trap and an anchored trap. The only thing I've got to do now, before I forget, is take the safety catch off so that the trap actually catches what we're aiming to get in there. So once the safety catch is off, that trap will go off, and again I put the trap down, put the box over the trap, and as it goes down I look in the trap entrances to make sure that the box isn't sitting on the trap. Now you could leave it at this point, but there's two more things that I would recommend you do. The first is to prevent things like badgers and other non-target species getting in the trap, is I would aim to weight down the box so it's harder for large mammals to roll the trap box off if you've put any bait in there, such as eggs or bits of dead meat, to attract your small predators into that tunnel. The final thing I would do is I wouldn't leave a shiny wooden box like this visible in the countryside. What I would now aim to do is take some brash, some soil and some stone, and cover this entire set in such a way that it wasn't visible to other people using the countryside. So that's setting a fen trap in a nutshell. These traps are unfortunately becoming slightly obsolete on estates now. Since 2018-2019, they aren't allowed to catch stoats, so we should really be looking at setting things like dock traps and tully traps in their place, just because we can't really guarantee that a stoat isn't going to get into these things. So the most appropriate place for these now is in farmyards and around buildings for catching rats. Okay, everybody?